Everybody, welcome to another NCAA tournament edition of Phil and the Mic. I, as always, am Darren Michael, and with me, the man who actually is just back in town. He's been in Green Bay, deep in negotiations with the Packers, representing the Jets. Fill up those brackets, Mr. Phil Calise. Phil, how you
Right
doing?
off the plane, right from Lambeau, right back to Jersey to start bracketologizing my face off. I will say this is the latest I've probably done brackets. Usually I'm like a Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday guy, sometimes even a Monday guy. Nope, not today.
Well,
I did a few this morning just to spice in the brain up for our big podcast. So I'm ready to
just
go.
just to make sure that you're all ready to go. I hear you. I hear you. Well, that's
What's going
good.
on?
Good. Not too much, man. Before we get into things, I just wanted to let you know the over 40 men's basketball league has
I love
started
to hear this.
again. We're actually, you missed it last week. We're actually 2 games into it. And in 2 games, we are now remember, we lost our first game last year and then we reeled off like 10 in a row, and then we
Right.
lost.
So this is your MO. I got it.
So we started off 0-2.
Oof.
And I am in 2 games, I am 0 for 3 from the floor.
Okay.
And I am 3 for 4 from the line. So I'm averaging 1.5 points, which in the NBA would be worth about $4 million a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So needless to say, I've not gotten off to the best start, and the team
Needless
is
to
not
say.
getting. So I'm beginning to think that maybe if the team gives me the ball more,
You think that's what it is?
maybe we'll start winning more games. I
That's
mean,
the most NBA thing you've ever said, too.
I think there's a direct correlation. Or you know what? Maybe if I go to a strip club before the next game and like 5:30 in the morning, I pull out a gun, that kind of thing. And anyway. But
Oof.
I missed you at the last podcast. I actually went solo, and the feedback that I'm getting from people was incredible. My mom said she loved it, and I don't think anybody else listened to it, so it was great.
You know what? Positive feedback. That's all you're looking for.
I'll take it, man. There
Positive
was no
feedback.
negative feedback whatsoever.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. I
So,
caught some of it, if I'm being honest. I didn't catch the whole thing myself because it's been a little
okay.
whirlwind since I got back from NOLA. So I'm working on catching up, to the things that pay me, the things that don't pay me. And then like in Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, when Vince Vaughn walks in the office, or Owen Wilson walks in the office, I think, and he's like, you know what time it is? Wedding season. You know what time it is? Travel baseball season. So now it's cranking.
Oh God, we're gonna be seeing some Money Mark on the show. We're gonna be doing some solo shows because fill up those brackets is going to be.
I do the best I
Oh,
can.
he's going to be fill up the stands with
I'll do the
big
best I
games.
can. We'll figure it out. We'll make it
See what we can do. We'll figure something out. So let's just dive right into it. I know we got to talk about the tournament because that's really the happening thing, but the most trending thing right now is not the tournament. That's number two. The most trending thing right now is Aaron Rodgers.
happen. Aaron.
And so here's just I just want to put something out there before we really dive into it, and that is, you know, the last great Packers quarterback. When you think about their last 30 some years,
Mhm.
they had two quarterbacks. That's
It's
it.
amazing. It's
They
crazy.
had, they had Favre, who was there for 16 years, 253 games, 3 MVPs in a Super Bowl. Then you've got Rodgers, 18 years, although a few of them he didn't play, 233 games, 4 MVPs in a Super Bowl. Just to put that into perspective, the Cleveland Browns have had 40 quarterbacks in that same amount of time.
And I would have bet more.
And right, I know, but that just goes to show you, like the Packers. Okay, in that time they've only won 2 Super Bowls. Okay, but they've been consistently a great team, basically year in year out. So it just goes to show you, if you can find the right quarterback, you are set for a long, long time. So let me ask you this before we talk about that. Does that mean that Jordan Love is going to be an incredible quarterback for the Packers?
Well, everything about this situation and even their franchise is so um like it runs in like full circle because obviously, and we're not going to go pre Favre, right? Pre Favre. But from Favre to drafting their future quarterback and having him sit multiple years to the same thing that happened with Rodgers.
Yeah.
And then doing the same thing with Love. And then I think Rodgers got an extra year before they tried to turn the car over to Love. But just in terms of, and then now it looks like we're on the verge of that aging quarterback go to the Jets back to back. I mean, so it's crazy. But when you look at their franchise, I mean, it's just amazing. When people say, why do quarterbacks make 50 million, 60 million? They do, because the Packers drafted two good ones and didn't need to do anything with that for 40 years.
That's
So
unbelievable.
that's why the adage that I've always heard is you draft a quarterback every year till you have one,
Yeah.
because that's the reason. Because without one, yeah, you hear little stories here or there, the Ravens team with that crazy defense and Trent Dilfer, and you could pick up a story here or two over 40 years. But give me the good quarterback, and I'll show you the team that's consistently in the playoffs. Does it guarantee winning a Super Bowl? No, because that's just super hard. But
Yeah.
I don't know what Favre's all-time record is, but Aaron Rodgers is 147 and 75. That's why you draft a quarterback. I mean, I look, and every year I'm looking down the sheet, except for his rookie year or the first year he started, 11 and 5, 10 and 5, 14 and 1, 12 and 11 and 5, 7 and 3, 12 and 4, 10 and 6, so on and so on. Three straight 13 and 3s. I mean, he had a year he was hurt. He was 4 and 3, and then he got hurt. I mean, that's it. That's franchise altering. He's a franchise altering quarterback, and for franchises like the Jets, they've had their franchise altered in a negative way by not ever by not ever landing one. So when people say, and you and I had this debate yesterday, I don't really want Rodgers and I don't really want to deal with the dance and play the game and stuff. But then you go down their list and look at the absolute abject failures they've had. And when you look at pockets of success the Jets have had, which is very small pockets, they typically have a veteran quarterback for most of their success outside of basically the 2 years of Mark Sanchez, where they had first of all, they were only 9 and 7 and 10 and 6 those two seasons.
Yeah.
They had a very controlled running game with really good backs, a game managing rookie and second year quarterback who just made enough plays, and a really good defense with Rex Ryan, who was just a hot coordinator turned coach at the time. He pulled all the right strings for a couple years. They got hot in the playoffs. They almost made it to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, fell just short. And like when Jet fans think of their success, there's not a lot of it, but you do think of those. But you think of the Curtis Martin era with a lot of great running the football, and I completely understand why the Jets are willing to go beyond to get Aaron Rodgers, even at 39. It's just so tempting. Um, so I get it, but it still looks like it's going to be a circus for a little bit before it all
Well, let me
settles in.
definitely let me ask you this. What do you think the Jets should give up? Not will they. What do you think they should give up to get him?
I think they should give up, and this is clearly where they're not in agreement. But I would tell the Packers, you know what? I think the most fair thing to do is to give up a 3 this year and a contingent 1 next year on him playing. I think that's the most fair thing to do. You're overpaying in the second year and you're underpaying in the first year. And I think that's what makes it a fair trade. You're saying, listen, we can't give you more than a 3 if this guy just plays 1 season. And we all know he's going to reevaluate if he's going to play after this season as well, because that's just what he's going to do. And that's not even him being a diva, to be honest. That's him being 40 years old.
Yeah,
Every 40-year-old man that's an NFL quarterback should reassess how the season went and how their body feels before they make a decision to play a second year.
that's true.
So I think that's the most fair thing. Here's a 3 this year, which is still like a hundredth type pick or something, wherever the Jets own, probably in the 90s. So it's a top 100 player. And if he comes back the second year, we will overpay you because we underpaid you the first year.
Hmm.
And so we will now overpay you with a first round pick. And the Jets should do that because if Aaron Rodgers is healthy his first year, they will be a playoff team. The pick will be in the 20s probably. And you know what? For a franchise that stinks as much as the Jets, that's a fair price to pay for a stabilizing force at quarterback who has the potential to absolutely scare the bejesus out of any team in the playoffs, because if he gets hot for 3 games, he could win 3 games for them on his own. And so
Well,
I think that's the most fair trade, a 3 this year or 1 next year.
here's here's the problem. Here's the problem. And I'm trying to figure out who has the upper hand in this deal, right? So Jets are all in. Aaron Rodgers has said that he wants to play and he wants to play for the Jets next year. And the Packers are saying, hey, we're going with Jordan Love, right? So basically everybody is in agreement. Here's the sticking point, right? He's due a roster bonus from the Packers of $59 million, but that doesn't kick in until September 1st. So technically speaking, if the Packers don't get what they want, they can basically hold the Jets hostage until the season starts. And that is a dangerous, dangerous situation to be in. So
Yeah, yeah.
what's going to happen? Let me just finish my thought really quickly. Is I think what's going to happen is the Jets are going to end up overpaying for Rodgers what they probably should, because they need to get him into camp, get him working with the team, get him into shape, doing all that other stuff. So I feel like the Packers are actually going to come out of this with a better deal than they probably should get, considering they have no options. I mean, they're not going to pay this guy $59 million. So, so what's going to happen at the last second? Wait, what are you going to do? You're going to cut him so that the $59 million doesn't come in, then you don't get anything. So it's one of those things, man, where it's just a standoff, and it's a game of chicken. That's what it comes down to. And who's going to give in first? Is it the Jets or is it the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who has more leverage. I really don't. Obviously, I've heard people say, well, the Packers have to have more leverage because they have the quarterback they want to start, and then they have this guy they have to pay anyway. And so, sure. But I do think, and I'm not usually sympathetic to players per se or anything, and I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has been a pain to the Packers the last couple of years. But let's put that in perspective. He put the franchise on his back for 15 years.
That's true.
They didn't exactly litter him with the greatest of weapons over the 15 years. So I'm not saying he didn't have some great players, but they're not an overspending organization. We know they're the only franchise that's run by their shareholders, and it's the fans, right? Just the structure of the Packers. It's the most unique setup in the history of sports. Aaron Rodgers has been a very good soldier over 18 years overall. So
Yeah.
maybe in the last few years he's been hallucinating, causing a few pieces of drama, but overall the non-hallucinating Aaron Rodgers was the main quarterback they had for 18 years. So I do think I say all that to say at some point they decided to be done with him, not the reverse. So
Yeah.
at some point, don't they owe it to him to like get this deal done now that he said he wants to play, and take a reasonable package versus dragging this out because they look bad. And here's what is going to happen. And this is why I don't think they have the Jets totally over a barrel.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers hasn't inserted himself into these discussions until he went on McAfee to at least just share his side of the story, but he didn't go hard at the Packers. He was very, what would you say? He was very pro Packer. He was very, um, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought in terms
He
of
was,
like
he
how
was very gracious to the organization.
gracious. That's the word.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
He was gracious to the Packers. He said all the right things, right? He
That's
set
right.
the record straight from his perspective, but he didn't go after them.
Right.
I
Right.
don't think that will last much longer if they don't make a deal with the Jets. And the Packers then have to balance these two things. Do we want to go that hard after potentially the greatest player who's ever played for us? When we talk about retiring him down the road, all the ceremonies, all the hoopla, he's number 12 in the rafters, and all those days that follow his career, how hard do we want to really hold this up before he starts destroying us on social media, destroying us on the McAfee show and all the rest of it? And how bad of a fight do we want to pick with our own fans who always typically have the players back now that the air's been cleared and the Packers wanted to trade him? He didn't ask out. So how hard do they really want to do that? Because I don't think Rodgers is going to give them more than another week before he starts saying things that they're not going to like.
Yeah.
And so I think they have to balance that too. So maybe instead of my 3 this year and a 1 next year, maybe the Jets just say, you know what? All right, fine, Green Bay. You don't want to, you don't, we're taking the risk that he only plays 1 year. We'll give you 2 twos, whether he plays or not the second year. We'll give you 2 twos. We're not giving you a 1, but we'll give you 2 twos and we'll take the risk that he comes back for a second year.
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing from the Packers' perspective. And granted, listen, we don't truly know what's happening, but it's being reported they think they should get what what Detroit got for Matthew Stafford, which is 2 number one.
Totally different story, though.
It is a completely different story.
Totally different story. First of all, Matthew Stafford, there was no risk he was going to retire after 1 year. It's just a toy. They could say that out loud. There's no way Joe Douglas would laugh. The equivalent of that would be, first of all, they would never take, obviously, my man, Zach Wilson. But the equivalent of that, let's say, would be 2 1s, a 3, and Elijah Moore. Good luck. You're not getting that. You're not getting that for a guy who could retire after 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year. Yeah.
That's just dumb.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, so. You know what? Listen, it's going to be exciting to see. I think as Jet fans, I think you and I are super excited. The new odds, the new Super Bowl odds came out yesterday with after he spoke on the Pat McAfee show, and the Jets are now the 5th most likely team to win the Super Bowl. Like, that's pretty incredible.
And that's why you make the trade, right? Because I predict that if Derek Carr would have been the guy the Jets traded for, it would have not moved the needle that much on the Jets. Again, if you told me they're more likely to make the playoffs, of course. But when you talk about like really winning it all, which let's face it, the Jets can't build a franchise sustaining good team. So our best chance to win it all is to take one crack at it. Like, let's just be honest. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, they're not the organization that's going to have a 10-year run. It just doesn't seem that way. No, so let's take a crack at it a la Tampa. Tampa, again, not a great franchise with a ton of success, but they got 2 rings, and one of them was basically Tom Brady deciding he wanted to play in a warm place, pick them, and next thing you know, they win a ring.
That's true. That's true. So, I look forward to talking more about this. We could talk about this all day, but I think we need to move on to the topic of the day, and that is the NCAA bracket. Now, there's some really interesting storylines with this tournament, and I got 5, and I want to see. I know you didn't follow college basketball too much this year, but I want to see if you can, without looking anything up, if you can answer these questions.
I never cheat because I have integrity.
Good. Well, but you're looking at your computer, so I just want to
but that's about other crap.
All right. So this is the first time ever since the brackets went to 64 teams that the number 1 preseason team missed the tournament.
North Carolina. I know
North Carolina. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. And how about this one? First time that a preseason unranked team gets a number 1 seed.
Wait, a preseason unranked team got a number 1 seed?
They were not a top 25.
Is that Purdue?
That is Purdue. Yeah. It's pretty wild, right? Pretty wild. And how about this one? Team that was picked to finish 9th in the Big East actually won the regular season and the conference tournament.
Is that UConn?
That is UConn. That's right.
I can't be cheating because there's no way I could get the answers this quick.
Yeah, no. You're the man. How about this one? The team that was projected to finish last in the Big 12 is a number 3 seed.
Is that Baylor?
Kansas State.
Okay.
That's some impressive coaching right there. And I'm going to get into that in a second. And of the 5 first-team All-Americans, there was 1 that was unanimous. Who was it?
I'm just going to say it because it's my favorite name to say. And it's probably not correct at all. Is it Timmy?
No, it's not.
You know who I'm talking about, though, right?
Is that Timmy? Yeah, Drew Timmy. Yeah.
I just like saying it like that. Okay. I don't know the answer.
It's Zach Edey, the 7'4", 290-pound probably player of the year from Purdue. 7'4", 290. He's actually not great, but he's just 7'4", 290.
Okay, yeah, I don't know who that is.
So how do you stop? And then 2 other things that I wanted to mention. One is from my backyard, Kennesaw State, their first time in the big dance. Did you know in 2019 when their current coach took over, his first year he was 1-28?
No.
And now they won their conference title. They're in the NCAA. That guy is going to be coaching big time basketball next year.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Let's just put it out there. And then the story of the tournament. I don't know if you remember this guy, Keontae Johnson. 20 months ago, he was playing at Florida. He collapsed on the court.
Okay.
He was in a coma for 3 days. He was cleared by doctors to play. He could have cashed in a $5 million insurance policy, but he chose not to. And he has played part of the season at Kansas State. actually led them to the season that they've had, averaging 17.7 and 7 rebounds, shooting 42% from three. And the reason they asked him, I said, why didn't you take the $5 million? He said, because if I did, that would mean that I wouldn't be allowed to play professionally.
Oh, really?
So
He wouldn't have been allowed.
he actually bet on himself.
So he could have taken a $5 million payout, but it said he couldn't go back to play like
That's it. That's it.
it's a forced retirement.
It's a disability payment for $5 million, but that would end his basketball career. But he
Wow.
thought that he could actually make it back, even with these potential health concerns that he was having.
I
And
like it. That's cool. It's a
unbelievable.
cool story.
It's a great story. Great story. So good for him. So when we look at let's just go kind of division by division, and we'll each pick who we think is coming out of that division, and when you
Okay.
look at these things, like let's take the West, for example. All right, you've got Kansas, who's the 1 seed. You've got UCLA, the 2 seed, who actually I believe just lost 2 starters, which is going to be tough for them. You've got the Zags as a 3 seed, who are they're usually a 1 seed, so it's been a little bit of a disappointing season for
Isn't
them.
that amazing to say out loud though? The Zags are usually a 1 seed.
It seems like every year they're a 1 seed,
They're
right?
just yeah. The only take I have on Gonzaga is it feels like ever since they became the hunted, they've just
Yeah,
not been as good.
not as good. No, I
They
agree.
they they they've always been better as the hunter, not the hunted.
I agree. And then you got the 4 seed of UConn. So when you look at the West, who do you have coming out of there?
Yeah, I mean, again, Kansas is probably heads and tails the best team in the West, but I decided when I looked at the brackets this year, and I admit I haven't been as locked into college basketball, which will probably make my bracket selections more deadly than ever because I have the least amount of
Exactly.
actual daily working knowledge this year than I normally would. What I actually did with the brackets is I looked at it this way. I decided I'm basically throwing out a lot of the top seeds in all the brackets because I just think it's a wide open year.
It is.
And again, I've heard that from everywhere. So we'll probably get 4 1 seeds in the final four, but whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and I kind of referenced this, but my angle on this was Gonzaga is a little bit of the forgotten team here. And I think it's not because 3 seed's pretty good. It's not like it's like they're not a good team or they're not recognized. But I think Gonzaga has not handled the pressure of being the team expected to get to a Final Four or win it all. They haven't won it yet. We know they've went in multiple times as 1 seeds. They've underachieved in a lot of these seasons. And I feel like the team is super battle tested.
Yep.
They've been through it all. And I think what tends to happen with these type of teams who have become perennial powerhouses but haven't been able to get over the hump, you got to find the year where people just kind of forgot them. Not the year they stink. Obviously, they're not going to win it that year, but the year they're just kind of forgotten. And Gonzaga kind of is just forgotten.
Yeah.
So my take is I'm going to pick them to get to the Final Four, and I'm going to pick them to beat UConn to get there. So I'm going with a little 3-4 action to get to the Final Four. And it's just because I feel like if they're ever going to do it, it's a year they're a little bit more overlooked. So that's what I
Yeah.
got in the West. Who do you got?
Yeah. I look at the same thing. I was loving how UCLA was playing, but the fact that they're down a couple guys, I think that kind of puts them out of the picture. UConn, I think that they overplayed all season long, and I think they're going to come back to reality in the tournament. The Zags, see, I just don't think they're as good. I really don't. I watched them play a couple times, and they're a solid team. I don't think they're great. I really, really don't.
I agree. They're probably not.
And I look at Kansas, and I think Kansas is the overall number 1 seed. They're freaking good, man. They are long. They're athletic. They just play. These guys they can just flat out play. So I'm thinking the number 1 seed is actually coming out of the West.
That was a really risky pick you made. Nice job.
I know it's a risky pick. Um, what I consider to be probably the weakest division is the East. You've got Purdue as 1, Marquette as 2, Kansas State at 3, and Tennessee at 4. Those are your 4 top seeds. Um,
Weird. Oh, that's it. So for me, I feel like I dropped in from Planet Krypton to
yeah,
see
right.
the East have Purdue, Marquette, Kansas State, and Tennessee as the top four. But maybe to go further, what makes it crazy wacky though is 5 and 6 is Duke and Kentucky.
Yeah, I know, right?
So the whole thing just it boggles the
And
brain.
you know what? There are so many people that are predicting that Duke comes out of this region.
Well, Duke always gets that where like if they're not a top 2 seed, they always get magically put in the most easy bracket of all
Of
time.
course, of
So
course.
it just seems like that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it sure the heck seems like when Duke's not a top 2 seed, they magically find themselves as like the best five in the worst bracket possible. In the East too, by the way. So they stay local too. So let's just hook them up anymore. So yeah. So I immediately chomp Duke out because I hate them. So I'm never that's never gonna be a feel good story you hear from me. Oh, the little underdog spicy Duke Blue Devils as a 5 seed getting to the final four. Not in my bracket, folks. Not happening. So I like Purdue this year, but again, I'm getting off the theme of picking 1 seeds. And I don't know. I didn't watch Purdue play once this year. I'm not gonna lie to anybody. I don't like Purdue when they're a 1 seed. I'm just call me crazy. It just doesn't feel like they have number 1 seed type talent. It means to me they overachieved all year. Something happened, but like the year they use the year they lose Ivy to the NBA doesn't feel like the year they're going to go win it all. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. So I'm going because I hate Duke. I got to go find some upsets. So I got a Elite Eight of the 4 seed Tennessee and the 6 seed Kentucky. I just feel like the Wildcats will get there somehow, some way. But I got Tennessee get to the Final Four.
All right, fair enough.
Little Rocky Top, Peyton Manning.
Listen, I kind of agree. You know, me being a huge fan, um, Indiana beat Purdue twice this year, so right away that takes them out of
Oh,
the equation.
I get it.
Okay, all
That's
right.
got to be a tough thing to swallow. You beat them twice; they're a 1 seed,
Oh God, I mean, my God, I mean,
and you
Indiana.
hate each other, and you hate each other too. So
Oh, Indiana's been so frustrating this whole year. You know, I mean, so the fact that Purdue lost to them twice means that they're not going to win the whole thing. Marquette is a 2 seed. I mean, where did that come from? I mean, they must not have played very good teams all
I
season.
don't get it either.
Um, Tennessee is always decent now for some reason. I think they're turning into more of a basketball school than a football school. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go with my heart on this one, and I'm gonna say Kansas State. I think they're gonna
Okay.
ride the shoulders of Keontae Johnson and this incredible story, and being projected to finish last in the Big 12 and getting all the way to the Final Four, I think would just be an unbelievable accomplishment. I think that they've got the emotional motivation to get there. I think everybody's been telling them that they're no good. And I think they've got a huge chip on their shoulder, led by this guy that basically, I mean, you collapsed, you thought he was dead. So I'm gonna go with a big upset also, and I'm gonna say Kansas State is the one that comes out of this division, which
Cool.
is
And I might have done the same thing if I knew the feel good story, but I didn't know it until we already did it.
all right. Another not so great bracket, the Midwest, where we've got Houston as the 1 seed, Texas 2, Xavier 3, and then somehow my Hoosiers are a 4 seed. And I listen, I know that you're tempted to pick the Hoosiers to go to the Final Four, but try to refrain, okay?
I didn't, so don't worry. No, but what I do have is I do have a I have my biggest upset
Okay.
coming out of here. Not out of here, I'm sorry. My biggest first round upset. I have Xavier going out in the first round to Kennesaw State. I just like the name Kennesaw State.
And
There's
the
nothing
fact
behind it, folks. When you pick 14s or 15s to be 2s or 3s, you're not doing it based on like logic or their basketball ability, right? So I just went with it. But I do have like a healthy amount of upsets here early on. I have your Hoosiers getting to the Sweet 16. I have them fighting off Kent State at the buzzer just to make you lose a few hairs to catch up to me. Then I actually have them playing
I
the
don't think
Drake.
so.
I have them playing the Drake Cakes because Miami will go out in the first round in that 12-5 matchup. So Indiana gets a nice cushy 13 and 12 to the Sweet 16, where they take care of the Drake Cakes easily. But then they run into Houston, and it doesn't work out so well for them. So I have them going out, but a good season, Sweet 16. I got Houston coming out of here, and I avoided all 1 seeds except for this bracket where I just kind of happened to do it. But I don't even have Texas getting to the Elite Eight, so I have Houston beating Iowa State, and I got a healthy amount of upsets. This is probably my most chaotic bracket in terms of just seeing
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of upsets.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you know what? I look at the same thing. I mean, I think Texas is a good team. I don't think Xavier's a good team. IU, there's no way they're going to make it to the Final Four. So I'm looking at the Midwest, and I got to tell you something, man. After Mattress Mac made so much money betting on the Astros last year, he made a huge bet betting on Houston to win the title this year.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I gotta trust Mattress Mac. He knows what's going on, and
You're riding with the Mac? I got it.
I gotta say that he's right about them at least getting to the Final Four. So
Okay.
so I'm also going with Houston. It's nice that we actually great minds think alike in this
Yeah.
case. South bracket. I actually think that this one is probably the best bracket. And
Okay.
you've got Alabama at 1, you've got Arizona at 2, you've got Baylor at 3, and you've got UVA at 4. Now we know that UVA usually doesn't make it out of the first round, as they lost to a 16 seed a few years ago. So what do you see happening in the South bracket this year?
So, spoiler alert, I have my national champion coming from the South bracket, ultimately. And sometimes I think that does happen, right? The most battle tested bracket, the team that
Yeah.
it's hardest to see coming out because the bracket is so good ends up winning it all because the cream does rise to the top. And that's
Yep.
probably a little known fact about the NCAA tournament. What makes the tournament so great is that early on you get just wacky basketball or just like the Cinderella stories and all that. But
Yep.
when you really shake it out, when the dust settles, typically the cream does end up rising to the top. When you get to a national championship game, there's usually the two best teams or two of the four best teams. And ultimately, the team that usually wins it is a team that was one of the best few teams all year. That's usually how it ends up shaking out.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I hate Alabama, not quite at Duke levels, but I just do. So they're not going to be the team I bring out of here. I also just I feel like Alabama is another one of those teams that they underachieve on a basketball court in these kind of settings. They're just not that team in the basketball world. They forfeited that right because they've won 43 national championships in football. So I'm going, but a little bit more chalky in this bracket. I don't have nearly as many upsets, but when the dust settles, I do have Alabama in the Elite Eight,
Yep.
losing to my eventual national champion, the Arizona Wildcats.
Wow. Wow. That's a big call. That's a big call.
I always think there's West Coast bias or East Coast bias against the West Coast. Like, even if I was locked into college basketball this year, I would have never seen Arizona play this year. Like, they come on at 10 p.m. They're
Yeah,
never on TV and at a reasonable hour. But I feel like the West has been better in basketball of late. UCLA's back.
they're a good
They've
team.
been good. Like Gonzaga's been, I just feel like the West gets a little bit underrated now.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I don't disagree. I mean, Baylor has had some great teams over the last few years, and they have a great team this year. But I think they're going to run out of gas. UVA, there's no way they're making it past the second round if they even get that far. They're just in the tournament. They're just a disappointing
That
team.
they play that style. You know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you remember, you go back, but like um who was it? Was it so one team that comes to mind is Georgetown. There's a couple teams that come to mind that like no matter how good they were, they play a style that doesn't lend itself to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like Virginia's really a pain in the neck all season because they grind you to death. Nobody wants to play them during the season, but in the tournament, they don't score enough. They just don't.
no, they're
You
not.
can't win 54, 52 games in the NCAA tournament a lot.
No, no, no. And their leading player is a transfer from IU. So I mean, what does that tell
Oh.
you? So listen, I watched Arizona play earlier in the season when Indiana played Arizona and Kansas back to back and just got obliterated by those teams. Arizona is a really, really great team. And honestly, I had initially picked them, but I switched over to Alabama because I think that might actually be one of the best games of the entire tournament if those two teams are in the final.
The Elite Eight, you're saying,
Uh,
yeah.
I mean, the athleticism between those teams is just phenomenal. But I think that Alabama, I think they've just been a better team. I think that they've got some great wins under their belt, and I think that they're gonna. I mean, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a very very close game, but I think that Alabama is gonna end up pulling it out. And I hate going with a 1 seed, but I think the 1 seed is coming out of this division. To be honest with you,
All right.
so let's talk about who you've got winning. So You've got Arizona beating Tennessee in the Final Four.
Yep.
Who do you have between Houston and Gonzaga?
Well, the drama has been set, so Mattress Mac's going to get his team in the championship game. So we're going to get another 2 weeks of Mattress Mac laying another 9 mil on the line and doubling down. Except this one's not going to end with a win for Mattress Mac.
Okay, all
This
right.
one's going to end with an L. Although I will say, obviously, Arizona would have to do it in Houston's backyard, which would be crazy. But that could work against Houston. The amount of pressure in that game playing at home could work against them.
That's true. That's true.
So I have Arizona meeting Houston in Houston's own backyard for the national title, and the Wildcats raising the banner. When's the last time they won a national championship? My mind automatically goes back to Mike Bibby and Miles Simon. Is that the last time? Or did they win one more recently?
I don't know. I think that might be the last one.
See that reference? I pulled a little Mike Bibby, Miles
like
Simon out. How do you like that?
It's funny because I came across Miles Simon name the other day. I don't know why. But yeah, I remember that. That was a great
That
team.
was actually one of my favorite. So like if I'm having a moment of nostalgia, for whatever reason, I think one of my most fondest memories of the NCAA tournament was that Arizona team.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't have a great reason for you. I just ended up I don't know how old I was at the time. It's got to be 20 plus years ago. Right?
Think of who else. Michael Dickerson, was he on the team? Was Michael Dickerson on their team? Like they're three?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had some big time dunkers on that team. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna try to look up. Not trying to cheat.
Maybe there could have been a Luke Walton sighting on that team.
Oh my god, yeah, okay, 1997.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Defeated the Kentucky Wildcats. Okay, wow. So that's exactly why. Okay, so now it makes sense. First of all, I'll date myself. I was 15 years old, so as a high schooler, this was the team I liked, and I think it might have even been their uniforms. Like I don't know what caught my attention, but I think they were a super exciting team. First of all, if you have a backcourt like that in college basketball,
yeah,
that's going to be a crazy exciting team. But yeah, so Arizona Wildcats reached the Final Four in 88, 94, 97, and 01. They defeated Kentucky.
Wait, so give me some names here.
I'm trying.
I'm trying to think of. They had
Mike Bibby, Michael Dickerson, Miles Simon, Bennett Davidson, AJ Bramlett rounded out the starting five, but other team members included Jason Terry.
Jason Terry, wow.
Eugene Ederson and Josh Pastner. They defeated 3 number 1 seeds in the same tournament.
Wow.
Kansas, listen to this, Blue Bloods. They went through Kansas, Carolina, and Kentucky.
Oh my God.
They won a thriller in the Elite Eight in double overtime. That's why I love them. They must have just been absurd, like just so exciting. Okay.
That's impressive. That's impressive. So no, that's good nostalgia.
That's super cool. That was super cool.
So you and I both have Houston in the finals, and I've got Alabama in the finals. You've got Arizona winning it all, but man, I got to stick with Mattress Mac. Whenever he puts money down, I usually put down 1 millionth of what he puts down. So I think he bet 9 million. I bet $9 on it. So man, I'm looking to win, at least $20 off of this thing. So
let's go, Mattress Mac.
So it's exciting. It's exciting. Make sure you send me over your bracket, take a picture of it or whatever. Okay. So that at least you and I can play against each other, and I'll do the same for you.
Okay. I'm on it.
Let's do a little free agency NFL. I mean, as soon as they announce it, it's like the Wild West. And I don't know about you, but I actually really enjoy the fact that guys get moved constantly. Like these teams, that's one of the most impressive things. With the amount of times these guys are moving around, a team like the Patriots, let's say, for example, has been able to keep some core players. If you're able to keep core players for a few years, you are doing something right, because these guys move around like it's nothing. I mean, think about it. Derek Carr, Jimmy G, Taylor Heineke, Andy Dalton, Jared Stidham, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Mike White, Case Keenum, PJ Walker, Kyle Allen. That's 11 quarterbacks, just quarterbacks that switch teams. Okay, the most important.
Yeah.
Great. Listen, most of these guys are not starters. Let's be honest. but that's still a lot of movement when it comes
Yep.
to quarterbacks. So let me ask you this, and I got a whole bunch of more things I want to talk about, but do you think that's good for the game that the teams are constantly picking up and trading, whatever? Do you think free agency is a really good thing for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, in the NFL, I do. I don't mind it in the NFL. You know, like I don't feel like, and I think I always view it from a fan perspective. I, there's a very core group of players that I feel like stay homegrown in the NFL, but the careers are so short-lived.
Yep. Yep.
It's just a different sport. Maybe it's even because they wear helmets and you don't identify faces to names as much in the NFL. But free agency in the NFL is just like it never phases me.
Yeah.
I dislike baseball free agency more, where small markets can't compete and what have you. But free agency in football is all about how you allocate your money properly. Everybody has about the same money. So it's a pretty even playing field because of all the TV rights and all the money that's shared. The little
It is.
Midwestern NFL teams got basically the same bankroll as Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So it really is allocation of resources, drafting well, and all that. So I don't mind the free agency frenzy. And when somebody does greatly overpay to land someone, they pay for that. Like it's not like baseball where, Steve Cohen just tack it on, no problem. If I mess up, it's not as big a deal. The NFL, you miss on a big free agent, you could screw up your team for 3 years.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So I'm fine with it.
As we've seen many times. There's a couple. I mean, there's so many free agents that we can talk about, but I'm not going to get into it. I want to ask you a question though. There's three mid-level wide receivers that signed for $11 million a year. I want you to tell me which of these signings you think is the best. All right. We've
Yeah,
got
I
we've
think I
got
know them before you say it. It's
oh
it's Lazard,
Lazard,
it's Juju,
Juju.
and the third one, I might not know the third. What's the third one?
Third one is Myers, Jacoby
Oh,
Myers.
Jacoby, the law firm of
So
Jacoby and Myers.
right. So Lazard went from Green Bay to New York. Myers went from New England to Las Vegas, and Juju went from KC to New England. Who got
Mm.
the best? Which receiver? I think which receiver do you think is poised to have the best season? Which one of these teams did the best job?
Um, I would probably I don't like Juju Smith-Schuster on that deal. I really don't. I think Myers has been a steady receiver that probably got paid a little more than I think he would get paid, but clearly the money's what the money is.
Yep.
I don't want to be biased, but I will go with Lazard just because I think he fits really well with what the Jets want to do, which is he's a really big-bodied receiver who, if Rodgers is there, first of all, there's obviously the rapport already built in, but I think so that's like one of those odd both guys change to the same team, so there's no getting to know each other. The
Yeah.
quarterback and receiver are immediately on the same page. But I think the Jets want to, even though they changed the offensive coordinator, I think they want to keep some of those same principles of what LaFleur brought. They want to run outside with fast running backs and you need big body receivers to block. And apparently Lazard is excellent at it. So I think it fits what they want to do. Make the contested catch where Rodgers scrambles out of the pocket and throws the ball up to him. Have the goal line presence in terms of like throwing jump balls up to him at the goal line. And then being that big blocker on the edge, I think he fits all of what the Jets want to do. So I'll go with him. I think he probably ends up being the best signing, unless Rodgers announces he's retiring and then I take it
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, the interesting thing was that the number one pick got traded, and that doesn't happen very often. The coveted number one pick, and I can't blame the Bears for trading the number one pick. I thought it was odd that it happened basically almost 2 months before the draft,
back.
which is really interesting to me. But what did you think about it, and who do you think Carolina is going to take? So the Bears, they traded the number one pick to Carolina. What did they get in return? They got the ninth pick, the 61st pick, a first round pick in 2024, a second round pick in 2025, and DJ Moore, who's a pretty solid receiver. Seems like a lot for the number one pick. So if they're doing that, who's Carolina taking with the number one pick since they're giving up so much?
First of all, what an amazing break for the Bears, who I don't think exactly run super lucky when it comes to anything NFL related. But if you think back to the Texans winning a few games late in the year
Yep.
that made the Bears become the 1 seed, and the Bears legitimately, I guess, pondered trading Justin Fields, right? Like, I guess there was that thought they could trade him and restart with
Maybe.
another quarterback they thought was better. They decided not to do it. And the benefit of that is trading out and getting a ton like they did.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's awesome for the Bears. I think they did
Oh
get a
yeah.
good haul, but I think you always get a good haul for the number 1 pick when there's quarterbacks at the top of the class. I think it's a guarantee you're going to get a big haul.
Yeah.
You asked me who I think they're going to take. I've actually seen a lot of debate on this. Normally, the
Oh
number
yeah.
1 quarterback is just always locked in, right? But I think the Alabama kid is really small. And I think there's just some organizations that aren't going to be in love with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I say that, and when Arizona went and took what's his face, Kyler Murray, who's even smaller, but meteor, if you want to use a weird phrase that I just came up with, meteor. He's a thicker kid. Um, um, I got this weird feeling that Carolina is going to take the kid from Florida.
At number one, you really think so?
Well, I think all bets are off. If they're off on him because he's small, if they just decide it's not our guy to build a franchise around, the kid who fits the bill the most in terms of just raw, I could see somebody just falling in love with that kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's so big and strong and athletic. That's where the game has moved to. I could see somebody just drooling over the talent that could be him. And he's got the highest ceiling and the highest floor. I mean, the highest ceiling and the lowest floor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
to me,
you're going boom or bust with him.
that is a huge boomer bust at the number one pick. Wow.
But CJ Stroud comes from, again, a lineage of failed Ohio State quarterbacks,
True. That's
and
true.
the Alabama kid is tiny. I
It's true.
guess I'm not giving the Kentucky kid enough credit that he could be number 1, but I don't think he has ever been in the equation for number 1.
No, no, no.
So to me, you either just fall in. Listen, every single year, i.e., New York Jets, Zach Wilson, every single year, really smart people fall in love with somebody who sucks, right? I mean, are we? I mean, and I'm not talking about just the Jets. Like, I don't want to just pick on the Jets. People miss on
Oh,
these things every day of the week.
oh,
They,
it's
they,
constant.
they.
It's
You got to
constant.
look at. You're looking, right? You need it. Anytime, think about this in life. Anytime you're desperate for something, you don't typically make the best choice. And the franchises that are typically desperate for quarterbacks find something that make them like lose their brain and not always make the most sane choice, right? If I got to hear one more time the throws they make in a on a field with no defense and nothing is the greatest thing anybody's ever seen. Oh my God, Zach Wilson did a backflip and threw a 68-yard spiral down the field. Oh, because that's going to be relevant in a game setting. Great. You know, oh my God, CJ Stroud is just tearing up this one-on-one toss to 5 wide receivers that are wide open on a field with no defenders. Great. I don't know what that means in a game. I don't know what that means in the NFL. Can you read coverage? Can you get out of pocket? Can you make smart decisions? Can you throw in the pocket? Something a lot of these kids just can't do. And then, and then can you beat a Bill Belichick defense, which is something no Jet quarterback can do.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be Richardson, the kid from Florida.
Wow.
I think it's just going to be, they're going to fall in love with him and take him.
And I look at that. I mean, me being well, not as much of a Gators fan as I used to be, but I kind of look at the body of work on the field
Oh, I
and
hear you.
not overly impressed. And Florida's got good players. They always have good players. They just can't develop them. And and so that's kind of what I look at. I hate the people that come into the combine and just wow everybody. I mean, it's like, okay, great. So you can do a bunch of push-ups, you can jump really high, you're a fast runner. Okay, that fantastic. Okay, you can, like you said, you can throw a great ball when there's nobody coming at you and you're not in pads and there's nobody covering the receiver. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't
Well,
know, man.
how's this one for you, right? And now this isn't as dramatic, but Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end, set like every Notre Dame record. They've
Yeah,
had a great lineage of tight ends, right?
yeah,
So it's not a small thing to set every Notre Dame record at tight end.
sure.
The kid's been a stud. He was a 5-star out of Kentucky. lived up to it, left after 3 years, actually had a good combine, but he's not like a combine freak. He's 6'4.5", 255. He's more of a Gronkowski, and that was his nickname in college, Baby Gronk. And he played like it for 3 years. He, on most mock drafts, somehow has been passed up by some tight end from Utah who ran like a 4.4 640 at the combine. And now somehow Michael Mayer, who was everybody's number one tight end going into the combine, has had 3 years of being a stud,
Yeah, yeah.
somehow make him drop to, in some cases, the second round because he ran a 4.68 40, because that's what, but he plays better than that on the field. And the kid's production's off the charts, but somehow some kid from Utah who's had one good year and ran a 4.48 40 is now the number one tight end. Listen, is it possible that that team takes that kid and he plays great? Sure. But when Michael Mayer is the best tight end for the next 5 years out of that class, and 20 teams that wanted a tight end passed on him because he didn't have one good day at a combine after 3 great years, that's where I scratch my head.
Yeah.
Like on the field, the kid's a stud. If this 4.48 40 kid was so good, why did it take him 4 years to have one good year?
I can't argue with you, man.
You know what I mean? Maybe he's coming into his own. Maybe he's a late bloomer, but I'm just saying, like, it's crazy.
They get enamored by these numbers and they don't
Yeah.
see what the guy could do. Gronkowski was definitely not the fastest guy in the world. Are you kidding me?
No, and he went in the second round.
And he's going to go down as one of the greatest tight ends that ever played the game. So
yeah,
it is. And he's hysterical and he makes really funny commercials, but that's beside the point. So let's just get into a couple quick hits here. Do you know who Ethan Salas is?
No.
You ever heard of the name? Okay. He was the number one international baseball prospect. You know, in the offseason, they all have like international money and they can go after these players.
Yep.
He was the number one consensus overall international prospect. So much so that basically the Padres gave almost all of their bonus money to him. They signed him for $5.6 million. Now, the interesting thing about this guy, besides the fact that he's 6 feet tall and weighs 148, is that he's also 16 years old. And the crazy thing is, last week, you know, he hasn't played any minor league games or whatever, but last week he actually found himself playing in spring training.
Whoa.
He had his first at bat. He came in, had his first at bat, and he saw one pitch grounded out to second base. But just when you think about that, I mean, this guy is that good that at age 16, with that kind of little frame, he's the number one international prospect, and they immediately put him into spring training. I mean, wow. That's all I got to say. Wow. I cannot wait to see this kid and see if he turns out to be as good as they're saying that this guy could potentially be. So that's pretty exciting. There's been a Trever Bauer sighting. Did you hear about that? You know, I don't really agree with what's going on with Trever Bauer. I don't think it's fair that this is a guy who was accused of doing something and then he was found that he didn't do it, found not guilty or whatever the case was. The case was dropped. So technically speaking, he was out for over a season for something that technically he didn't do. And now the Dodgers drop him. Nobody in major leagues wants him, which I can't understand. So he signed a 1-year deal with the Yokohama Bay Stars of the Japanese League.
Yep.
Is there any chance this guy doesn't dominate and return to the majors next year?
I don't feel like they want him back.
You think that it's just done? They're not.
I mean, time maybe, another couple years go by, maybe, but doesn't feel like.
You know what they say this is a rare case because we've talked about it. Usually guys that are in the prime of their career get a second chance. So
yeah,
just look at it like if this guy goes to Japan and he dominates, somebody's going to want to give him a second chance.
Maybe.
That's kind of how I see it.
I don't know.
And then let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on the World Baseball Classic? Knowing that you just lost your closer last night for the entire season, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like
I don't want to come across as a bitter Met fan. It's absolutely brutal that Edwin Diaz will be out for the year with what looks like a torn ACL celebrating.
or
something. I mean, I can't say that I really care about it. My kids were excited for it. The games come on too late, so they can't even watch them. So I guess I could totally pass on it. I think it should be done in the middle of the season. If Major League Baseball wants to do this, pause the Major League season for 2 weeks, do it in the middle of the season when the players are actually hot and ready and in the middle of their season and not trying to ramp up too early. And I think that's when it should be done. Get rid of every 4 years, don't have an all-star game, right? And take a 10-day window in July and play it.
That's an interesting thought. The thing that I don't like about it is when you look at the guys that are playing versus not playing, right? You basically have, some of these teams, let's talk about like Dominican and Venezuela, Mexico, things like that. You basically have the top hitters playing. And I think across the entire tournament, the top hitters from baseball are playing. But only the foreign teams have the top pitchers.
Yep.
When you look at the US pitchers are not good. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
what else to
they don't.
say. I
No, they
mean,
don't want to participate,
no,
or
they
they're
don't
not allowed to, or whatever.
they don't want to risk injury. Whereas you got all these other guys, the Mets have got to be livid right now that happened. And granted,
Yeah,
it's a freak accident, and he could have done it, in the backyard playing with his kids. But the fact of the matter is, there's nothing in the contracts that say that they can't do this.
yep,
So, you got these guys that are gonna have this pride, and want to play.
yeah, yep.
So anyway,
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm not a huge fan, but it is what it is. I get why these countries like it. I get it. I just think you can shift it. Have it during the All-Star break. You need 14 days to play the whole tournament. So you need to take 2 weeks off. I don't know if baseball is that hurt by a 2 week pause in the middle of a very long season. So I think once every 4 years you can make it work. But I don't think early
Yeah,
March is the time to do it. I think it's
yeah.
July when everybody's long in baseball
Nice and
shape.
loose and everything. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
hot out. It's I just think it's better. So
I agree. I agree. I got a couple quick hits for you, and then we're gonna get out of here. I want to talk about an umpire. I don't know if you heard this. The guy's name is Reggie Drummer. He's an umpire. He was actually suspended indefinitely because he made two shocking strike calls to
yep,
end
I
the
saw
game
it.
between New Orleans and Mississippi Valley State. You saw that, dude. I mean,
He should be fired.
yeah. I mean, I would have been fired. I mean, you saw the last pitch especially was like 2 feet off the plate. It's like, I mean, the catcher catches it. I mean, he had to like lunge to catch it, and it's a strike. So
Yeah,
I was happy to see that they actually made that, because when you're doing something like that, I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is you're either a horrible umpire or you're getting paid. I mean, there's nothing else to it. So I
yeah.
thought that was interesting. Sticking with college baseball, Texas State, they have a freshman by the name of Chase Mora, and on Monday night he hit 4 home runs in a game. And so this is how this guy has started off his college career. In 20 plate appearances, he's got 8 home runs and 17 RBIs. All right, he sounds like me on the basketball court. No, not really. And I want to finish it off with a quote from Charles Barkley, my man, my man.
Terrible.
We love yeah. This quote is not terrible. Uh, this is his quote. Wait a minute. You're going to make $70 million a year and you can't play basketball 3 to 4 days a week? They fly private, got the best medical staff ever created. People work in the steel mill every day. I'm pretty sure they get tired too, but they go to work every day.
Yeah, this is about load management and all that crap. Yep. No,
Amen.
listen, get your
Amen.
butt on the court. I agree.
So good stuff, man. I want to end it with that. But good luck with your brackets, my friend. I hope everybody enjoys the tournament. It's probably, these tournaments they seem like they just keep getting better and better, because there's never really a clear-cut number one great team. There's upsets all over the place. So enjoy it. Thanks for checking us out, and hope everybody has a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.